Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today we want to have a look at a browser I just saw show up on my Twitter or X or whatever you're calling it feed. And I want to have a brief look at the browser itself, but I also want to say we saw this was at that Thorium browser. One person saw it, did a video, and then it absolutely exploded. And it was like, everybody in the world's like, this is the best browser ever. It turned out to be, very insecure, had a lot of weird problems in the background, and fundamentally the project of a single person. I wanted to mention this browser and just point you to it, but also tell you I have a lot of bad feelings about this particular browser. So I'm going to show you this, and we're going to have a brief look at it, but I want to warn a lot of caution on this one right away. And if people are, into code auditing and into network sniffing and things like that, I would highly say we should have a look at this. And if it genuinely is good, great. If it genuinely is not, we need to stop the hype about it first. So that's kind of why I wanted to mention it when I saw this. And I was actually going to just jump out and look at the browser and really leave it at that. But then I started thinking, there seems to be something's bothering me about this. But let's go ahead and talk about the browser first, and then we'll get into what it might be bothering me about it. So this browser is the Helium Browser, and it is available as a public beta, and they have a Linux app image version, they have a Windows, and they have a Mac version of it. So I went ahead and I downloaded the app image and I booted this guy up. And there is defaults you can use, or you can hit your configure. They have a privacy policy and a terms of use, both of which seem to be decent policies. We're going to go ahead and come back to the browser in just a moment. So this is based on ungoogled Chromium, which means, which I think might actually be the same thing that Thorium was based on. So the ungoogled Chromium is the Chromium package base with all things Google stripped out of it. Now you can get the raw ungoogled Chromium, which is a whole project with a whole team behind it. This particular browser utilizes that and apparently makes a few other modifications, but their problem here is it is a team of 2 people and they are completely anonymous. And that is one of those factors. I mean, sure, here's a privacy channel saying, should we be concerned about 2 anonymous people? Maybe. If we don't know who is behind it, that is certainly a problem. That's actually one of the things I had chatted about with some of our supporters not too long ago. In the light of this crazy AI world, should I move my channel into being a little bit more faceless, not put my face on my channel? And overwhelmingly, the answer was no, because the human touch tells you it's still there. There's other channels I respect that have chosen to keep their growing and developing body off of the internet, and I respect that. I understand it. And that's one of the things I was thinking about. But, hey, I might just be a little bit in too deep. And it's one of those sacrifices I do, bringing privacy and awareness. But if we know nothing about the people and they have a corporation based out of one place and questionable things out of other places and stuff like that, it really kind of makes you wonder a little bit. And that's really what caused me to start investigating a little bit deeper. And I don't have solid answers. I'll tell you what is fact and what is opinion here when we go through. We're going to start with just the basic overview. So they say best privacy by default, not as a hidden option. I'm not 100% sure I agree with that, because if you hit that default configuration, it's like on Windows, it turns everything on automatically. But if you go through the configuration, there's a bunch of things that you might want to turn on, you might want to turn off. I don't know. We'll have a look. But it blocks ads, trackers, phishing websites, and other things by default. Now, is there something inside of it that does this, or is it just uBlock? It suggests here that there are community filters embedded in the browser in addition to being pre-installed with uBlock Origin. So I don't know how much longer uBlock Origin will continue, or unless they're using the uBlock Origin Lite. We'll investigate that. So Helium blocks all third-party cookies, does its best to prevent fingerprinting. No extra steps are needed, and there are no biased exceptions, unlike other browsers. I think he's getting at things like Firefox recently, in the last few years have been targeting like we need to combat disinformation. Well, one person's disinformation very well is another person's truth. Actually, one person's disinformation generally is objective fact elsewhere. And so I think that's kind of what they're getting at is good marketing on that. So that's what they're doing here, and you can increase privacy further with ungoogled Chromium flags or extra uBlock origin filters. So you can do all that kind of stuff. The browser itself does not have any ads trackers or analytics, and Helium also doesn't make any web requests without your explicit consent. And so when it first launches, they say it does nothing. Again, I have not tested that part. It says respectful, does not annoy you with anything and never will, doesn't do anything without your consent, no unprovoked tabs about updates or sponsors, no persistent pop-ups telling you about features you don't care about, and no weird restarts. All right. They say fast, efficient, and light. And here's, just, I guess, some pictures of the browser. And so you can go down here and you can see information on the site. Hit the download button, and I think this one automatically goes to download. I think that actually goes to automatically download the Linux version. Let me click on that link again. Yeah, see, it automatically launches the download. I would like to go and see the actual download page rather than, once again, you just hit the download. It automatically downloads based on what you want. Well, maybe I'm using my Linux computer here and I want to download a Windows executable that I'm going to move over to my offline Windows computer because, I need a web browser on my offline computer. Go figure, right? Hey, I'm just trying to get something installed without booting up Edge the first time, right? Apparently, I don't see that option. Of course, I can go to the GitHub page, and the GitHub page will have the downloads, and I can grab them directly from there. But the website itself is going to do that. So let's have a look at the browser itself. So here is the browser. Here is uBlock origin, and it does appear to be the original uBlock origin, not light, which means they've either put manifest 2.0 back in or they re-enabled it. And the question is, how long is that going to configure? You can use the defaults or you can hit configure. So by default, the allow connecting to the Helium services. So this is if you want to install downloads or bangs or things like that, you have to do that. They say they will not make any specific web requests. If you want to install other extensions, you need to have that turned on. Proxy extension downloads and updates. It will proxy the extension downloads through their service or not. So do you want it going directly to the Google repository or through their proxy? And that raises a question to me. If everything is going through their proxies, they have the capability of collecting some of your information. Now, they say that they do not actually collect it. We'll have a look at their privacy policy in a few minutes here. So allow and download filter lists, so you can grab download filter lists and allow automatic browser updates in the future when it's supported. Right now it is not. So you can see that automatically there is a lot of things turned on that you might want it turned off if they're saying by default it doesn't do anything. Well, apparently by default it does, and that's the question. Now, they say you can host your own instance of the Helium services and use it in your browser instead of the pre-hosted. So if you happen to have the ability to do that, you can set that up. So this is, I think, where you would probably change that. Yeah, that's where you would change that. So I didn't see any documentation for doing that. I didn't actually look for it, but presumably you might be able to self-host something like that. That actually would be a very good feature if you can host all of these and proxy all this stuff yourself. That would actually be a really good feature. I didn't see information about all that kind of stuff right away, but anyway, that is an option they have, so that's nice. I do want to have a look at their privacy policy and their terms of use. So last revision from October 21st, 2025, and their privacy policy basically does not make any network requests, including to services, unless the request are the result of user actions. All browsing data managed by Helium is stored locally on your device. Services do not collect, store, or share personal information. Non-identifiable technical information may be retained no longer than 24 hours to prevent abuse. And they use Cloudflare for content delivery and protection of the website. And they may load a plausible analytics script hosted on the server owned and managed by the company. So they're doing analytics in a good privacy managed way. So that is overall, this is a good privacy policy for the most part. You know, everyone needs one. That one's actually pretty good. This is the various terms of use, which I did not read this super close, but actually I didn't even click on it yet. You can see it's also super short. Here is Helium license under GPL 3.0 license with some imported content also being licensed under BSD 3 clause license. So there's the various information, and then basically very simple terms. So overall, you might look at this and go, there is, that actually seems pretty good. Let's also go ahead and have a look at some fingerprinting. So I went ahead and pulled 2 fingerprint tests on my Firefox browser, and let's go ahead and run those same tests over here. This one here says, yes, are you unique? Yes, and it says this is a good thing. The problem is if you're unique, that's kind of a problem. Okay, means you can be fingerprinted on your browser. Right? So this one here, the only fun fact right now is I'm not actually in UTC 4, but I do keep my computer on the same time zone. See, I'm using the same language as 66, the same browser as 34%, and I'm using GNU Linux operating system, obviously Linux Mint at 18%, and then there's other information about it. There's also a cover your tracks from EFF. And this indicates that I do have strong protection, but I do have a unique fingerprint. So I'm strongly protected, but I still do have a unique fingerprint. So this guy here, yes, you are unique among everything. So you can see that the numbers are pretty close to the same on this one. So I'm not actually getting a lot over that. Oh, hold on. Let me flip back to this one again. So it doesn't actually look like it's really any better than Firefox on that one. This one over here, let's see what this report tells me. So you need to come over here. You need to test your browser. I'm going to run it through real tests. And then this is going to go ahead and test my browser. Now, for reference, I'm not doing anything totally amazing on my Firefox browser other than I don't store any cookies over there. I don't think I even run uBlock Origin over there, but I do run Privacy Badger. That says that, yes, I am blocking ads, so it has strong protection, but it does have a unique fingerprint. So it's not particularly looking any better than Firefox. So that is, for whatever that's worth. Is it better? Is it worse? And there's whole reports about which browsers are doing better and which browsers are doing worse. So, and again, it is available as an app image. So that might be a good thing. That might be a bad thing for you. And then of course you're going to have your basic, Google Chromium base. So there is information about it. Now, what is it that caused me to stop and go, there seems to be something funky about this? What was it? What I wanted to look at first and foremost is I did go over and have a look at their GitHub and see how long has the GitHub been around for. And let me look at this exact one here. If I can remember exactly how to find how long it's been here. I can't find the exact information about when it was, but there are only 2 people involved in the company itself. We have this guy here, Wuku, and we have this guy here, Dumb Moron. That is it. That is all the information. Now, Dumb Moron does not have... actually, you know what? I didn't actually look at his particular website very closely. This was his individual website here. I'm not, this looks like it's probably just, this is just, a generic placeholder type page. This one is a self-hosted page that he has created by himself. And this page is over here, and this is all it is. And you can see it's quite anonymous. They have 3 projects. They have Cobalt Tools. They have the input.net, which is the company that this is under. And then they have Meow Camera, which is just a bunch of camera ads, like camera feeds. And I was thinking, what got me really thinking about this is to say, when I did the research looking at if you remember a few months ago, there was the free VPN browser extension, which was ultimately pulled off of the Google Play Store because while it was a free VPN and seemed to be non-malicious for a long time, all of a sudden they pushed a policy change and which allowed them, by your continued use, to start collecting all sorts of data. And I started looking more deeply into that, and I traced back a bunch of fairly obscure registrars and code and a few other things, and found that right in alignment with those individual tests, 2 other browser extensions showed up on the Google Play Store, and I'm not saying they all absolutely are connected. I'm saying there were a lot of markers to me that made me think they might be connected. Again, I'm not saying they're all the same person, but I believe it is a possibility, it is an opinion of mine, that the person who launched that browser prior to trying to collect all the information launched 2 other browser extensions under similar names, similar websites, similar terms, hosted at similar companies, registered at similar domain names. And I thought it was all really a little suspicious as I watched shell companies jump from this country to this country to this country to this country. And ultimately, though, it all seemed to tie down to a person who was obsessed with cats over in Malaysia, I think. Was it Malaysia or Sri Lanka, I think? Well, here I'm looking at this going, I have a faithless person obsessed with cats. And I thought it was very interesting. And again, this is all total speculation, but I have been in web design and development for years. I have never heard of the 2 registrars that both of the sites connected to this person have both been registered at. And they are both registrars used in those other shady VPN companies, Spaceship Inc. and Pork Bun. Again, I am not saying it's the same person because these they're likely just cheap, easy to get things that any fly-by-nighter might do. But again, these are cheap, junky registrars that fly-by-nighters might use. And that causes me concern that if we have a company that's sprung up out of pretty much nowhere. In fact, this one was originally just registered a few months ago. And they're using, again, your generic Cloudflare type stuff, which is common, very, very common to use the generic Cloudflare stuff. But we're registered at Pork Bun. And where are we at? We are all of a sudden in Wyoming. And there was actually a Reddit post. What did people think about it? And the guy says, well, it's just kind of 2 guys from Wyoming. Well, what was interesting to me is that to look at this guy's Twitter feed, he's commenting a lot of things. And he was been around for a while, of course. But if you scroll through his feed, he's commenting on a lot of things in international areas. I have a sneaky suspicion these are not 2 guys from Wyoming. Okay. I just don't think it is. It's an opinion of mine. It's a thought. And without seeing the solid transparency and the ability to actually see all these things, it makes me wonder about 2 registrars connected in fly-by-night registrars used by other services that have demonstrated themselves to be shady, a web browser company dedicatedly to privacy run by 2 individual yet nameless people who simply go by Woku and Dumb Moron. I am not going to be all that trusting of the Helium browser. So as we start to see everybody jumping up with the Helium browser, I am not saying right here, this is a horrible project you should never use. What I am saying is people infinitely better at auditing code and network packets should definitely keep an eye on this and see what it is. Is this actually a legitimate company by 2 privacy-focused guys in the middle of Wyoming, or is this another fly-by-nighter that is using proxy companies? Because, by the way, you can pay like $100 to a proxy and corporate service, and you can get a Wyoming LLC. And here's the other factor: is I looked into company registrar documents. I can't find their company. I cannot find those. And I was able to find those companies in the case of that VPN that I was looking at. I could not find these company documents. So either they are so new, they are not yet available on the web, or they don't have an LLC at all. That is a possibility because their website has effectively no information. All through their projects have effectively no information. Everything ties back to two simple websites done by fly-by-night organizations. And honestly, the web browser itself does not appear to be anything better than I can do on Firefox in a solid few minutes by installing uBlock Origin, installing Privacy Badger, and configuring a few settings inside of the GUI settings manager. So I am just going to point this out. I would highly encourage people to have a look at the Helium browser, but look at it more closely than just going, oh, wow, it's a great new privacy tool that we should all just use and download on our systems right now, because something in me is a little suspicious about it. And I want to trust them, but at the same time, I have two nameless people going by Wuku and Dumb Moron on a brand new company with an LLC that I can't find information on, with two domains registered by fly-by-night organizations. And to me, it causes a lot of concern as we look into this, and a lot of people are trying to get away from all the Google and get away from all this privacy. Even the scammers are in on this. I'm not saying these guys are scammers. I'm saying we have to exercise a bit of caution when we have a brand new privacy company come up. So there is the new browser if you want to have a look at it. And definitely if you are into auditing the code and into packet sniffing and things, make sure the thing's doing what it's doing. But again, notice all those proxies sending data back into their individual servers. That is certainly an interesting thing to think about. So let me know your thoughts about all that in the comments down below.